Hello all. I'm going to start this video by briefly talking about some of the press coverage and interviews. I mentioned it in the last video, but boy has it ramped up, and to be honest, it doesn't feel like they're even pretending there isn't an agenda anymore. RTD certainly isn't. There also seems to be some ill will to it too. I've been in several forums where people will say, I hope they do so and so to piss those people off. I can't help but wonder if this is what this is all about. You know, they tell you it's not for you, then call you an Instaphobe when you don't watch. It's a weird juxtaposition symptomatic of their hypocritical ideology. I'll say what I said with She-Hulk. If you want to own the critics and prove them wrong, the best way is to write something good. Don't double down and prove them right, that's not the win you think it is. So on to this week's episode, boom. I know I said at the end of the last video I wasn't going to watch this, but I did because I knew it was a Moffat episode, and during the first RTD run, they were some of my absolute favourites, so really reluctantly, I decided to give it another look. And so far, it's the best of the series, but that doesn't make it good. It's like saying which is the best cancer. It's overly convoluted, there are some contrived attempts to tug on the heartstrings which failed badly for me. The message is there, of course, and more LGBTQ+ stuff, anti-capitalism, anti-corporations, and a pointed attack on religion via Christianity. And none of this is subtle. As usual, we are repeatedly slapped in the face with the wet halibut of ideology. There are some good elements, and as before, the core idea is quite nice. Sadly, Moffat has a really bad habit of just trying to be too clever, and this happens here too. The Doctor, once again, is mostly not the Doctor, though there are brief moments. Ncuti is better, but they definitely shouldn't focus on him running, and Millie is as bad as she was before. And because you're wondering, yes, they're singing again to sail them back to the campsite. Oh, and a very suggestively shaped prop that, given the snowman comment in the Christmas special, look it up but not at work, you know it isn't an accident, and it just feels perverse and sordid, given it's a show aimed at kids. I'm afraid I've got to get into the weeds a bit more, so there's going to be spoilers this time. The setup is fine. The Doctor arrives on a planet in the middle of a war and steps on a landmine. This could be an emotional roller coaster of the Doctor realising his time may be up already, or altogether. How will he protect Ruby? Will Ruby argue with him about leaving him? It could have been a deep dive into their characters. But no. Ruby is back at the TARDIS, and he's singing, because of course he's singing, and he calls her to come to him. Yes, that's right, the Doctor calls for Ruby to come into a minefield. I mean, not much of a duty of care there, is there? Cue the Doctor being scared again. Third episode in a row, and blubbing like a child who scraped his knee. There is genuinely nothing classically masculine about this iteration, and the scene requires more subtlety, but sadly we've got Ncuti. And just to say, emotion is fine, we've had it before with the Doctor, but when it happens all the time, it loses its power. If Tennant had blubbed every time he was on the screen, when he does his raging against the dying of the light speech, it would have had no impact, because we'd have seen him blubbing the last few episodes. Anyway, apparently the Doctor can't move at all, as the landmine will register him as a target and explode. Yet somehow he's able to just continue jabbering on and grab that suggestively shaped prop. It seems war has been optimised for profit, and an arms supplier are pretty much directing and capitalising on most conflicts. A comment on the arms industry and military-industrial complex is reasonable and in my opinion justified. But hang on, the Doctor knows about this evil corporation, but hasn't done a thing to stop it. Oops, did that moral thing go wrong again? Also, I have to mention the irony of people whose entire career exists because of capitalism, and who are funded by a massive corporation bitching about capitalism. It's just funny. The daughter of a soldier killed at the start turns up in the middle of the battlefield, because that sort of thing happens. And to be honest, I wouldn't have minded her getting blown up because she is so irritating and incredibly stupid. Part of it might be an attempt to call back to The Empty Child, but it feels a little bit more like Orphan 55's lamentable cry of "Where's Benny?" Now, when the soldiers are killed, including the girl's father, they're turned into a kind of flesh urn, and this is the suggestively shaped object. There's no dancing delicately around it. They look like dildos, which the cast, including the little girl, play past the parcel with. As I say, there's no way this wasn't intentional, and maybe it was supposed to be funny, but it's just icky, and that's putting it mildly. The whole war setup is quite interesting and is slowly teased until it's finally exposed in a garbled but typical Doctor Who info dump, though it's full of meaningless technobabble, fake profundity, and the clown show that is the Doctor celebrating his win. It's just embarrassing. The resolution is fine too, and surprisingly, it nods to the importance of fatherhood, which is usually sacrificed on that fishy altar replaced by the bad dad trope. So that was cool, and the father was probably the most well-realised character in it. It was also nice to see a throwback to the Moffat era with the cleric army. Sadly, it also results in that quite aggressive attack on faith and religion. It genuinely took me aback because it was so vicious and uncalled for. Don't get me wrong, religion should be open to criticism, but wow, this was strong. And then there's another attempt to tug at the heartstrings, but again, convoluted and actually dilutes the story. It's completely unnecessary. So I guess this is Doctor Who now. Such a shame. A great British institution and a show I have loved almost my entire life has been doomed. We could have a whip round to pay for a trip to Dignitas, but we don't really have to because they've laid their own minefield and they're merrily jumping from mine to mine, blowing limbs off as they go, shouting about how everything's fine and it's everyone else's fault.
Here's but a scratch. A scratch? Your arm's off. No, it isn't. Well, what's that then? I've heard worse. You've got no arms left. Yes, I have. Look! Just a flesh wound.
But hey, at least we know it's our fault, right? Anyway, what did you think? If you could bring yourself to watch, that is. Did you think it was slightly better or just pissing on a long dead corpse? If you've enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. Thanks for listening. I do appreciate it, and peace out.